Today we're going to talk about punching Nazis. It was apparently a pretty hot topic of discussion over the last few days. Friends who are both liberal and conservative basically ringing in on the exact same thing and getting some pretty wild and varied answers. Um, for one, I kind of think it's a really bad fucking idea to start picking people out and deciding, who you're allowed to punch and who you're not based on ideology. The slippery slope there obviously starts with things like, for example, Muslims. Reason I use that as an example is because the left seems to be totally cool with punching Nazis because, well, fascism, racism, intolerance, anti-gay, anti-Jew, etc., etc. And the reason I found that kind of ironic is because a lot of those guys I asked how they felt about the Muslim bans. And they immediately start doing the, well, it's not the same exact thing because, not all Muslims are bad and this and that. And, I kind of said, well, is it possible that some people who are into white separatist movement aren't necessarily Nazis, that they kind of want to be left alone. They don't really want to deal with other cultures or races. And in a way, that's kind of their sort of freedom to want to kind of pursue that. How is that any different from Muslims who live with Sharia law, where I hate to say it, but a lot of the countries and the people that they're kind of defending have really nasty views toward Jews and gays and women, and you have fatwas and hijab, and they'll throw gay people off a roof. Apparently, there's no connection between those groups because it doesn't ideologically fit with what they're trying to push forward. So I guess I kind of put this out there to everyone who's watching. What do you think? Is it acceptable to punch Nazis? At what point do you draw the line at Nazi? Because freedom of speech is kind of slippery like that. I mean, unfortunately, while I don't like or advocate or I think it's fucking gross when people talk about ethnic cleansing or, actually killing or hurting people. Up to that point, up until they act, it's still free speech and you're kind of allowed to say whatever the fuck you want. I think simply having somebody say, well, as soon as they say that, I'm allowed to punch them in the face, you just escalated it and it's no longer freedom of speech. You're actually infringing on it. I also found it interesting, too, that a lot of the people who are left-leaning on this issue have been throwing around the word Nazi at everyone who doesn't agree with them. If you don't agree with Black Lives Matter, you're a Nazi. If you don't agree with third-wave feminism, you're a Nazi. If you think it's okay for Milo to have a talk at UC Berkeley, you're a Nazi. So at the end of the day, they're able to apply the term Nazi to anything and everyone that doesn't agree with the ideology and then beat the shit out of you for it. And I found it crazy because they're burning books and banning free speech. But feel free to discuss. I'm going to get the phone.